Hi, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. This week's project, we're going to take this piece of 2 1/4 inch square by 18 inch long laminated yellow birch, and this piece of 6 inch by 6 inch square by 2 inch thick black walnut, and we're going to make a custom scrunchie holder with a little bit of a twist. I'm going to put the yellow birch on the lathe and I'll bring it back when I'm turning that. So I've got this listed as project that sells, and that's part of the series that I've been doing for quite a while now. This is a little bit different in that this one is more of an intermediate type project than a beginner. I do use a 4-jaw chuck. I do use a Jacobs chuck with the drill in the tailstock, and so you know, an actual beginner may not have that equipment, but it's still a very good product that moves, and so I do want to list it as a project that sells video. Also, I have sped up the turning a little bit in some places. The turning is never any faster than 2 times though, anywhere throughout the video. And the most often asked question I get in these videos is, what would you sell this for? And so again, it depends on what wood you use. This you can laminate any kind of shop scrap you have at all. Hardwood preferred, of course. So your cost is pretty low on wood, and a 6 inch by 6 inch piece of 2 inch thick hardwood for a base also can be out of scrap wood. So your wood cost is very low, and it takes less than an hour to make. So I would sell this for $50. So I just used my block of walnut just to make my dowel length, which was shorter than the thickness of the block of walnut by about a 1/2 inch. And then I just put a mark on the other end of what I thought would be a decent size handle for the person's hand that was going to be receiving this as a gift. Now I'm just going to use a skew chisel to quickly remove some of the material to get the dowel close to the right size. Now I switch from a curve to a straight skew just to get the dowel straight and to bring it down to the right size. And I was shooting for 1 1/16 inch dowel on this actually, so I'm just measuring what I've got here right now to make sure that I hadn't gone too far. And now I'm measuring my 1 1/16 Forstner bit, which is a little backwards, but it worked out. To show you a little bit of the sanding here, I started at 120 grit and went up to 400. Here I'm just putting a small bevel on the end of the dowel so it'll slide into the base more easily. And the reason I sanded the barrel of this before I finished out the handle, just if I got the handle small and it started to vibrate, it's just a little easier to do that sanding while it's still a nice solid piece. And to show a little bit of the sanding on the handle, up to 400 grit as well. Now I'm just going to cut the dowel on the end of the handle down as small as I can and get a really nice clean cut to avoid any of that ingrain sanding, or as much of it as I can. So I just knocked the dust back off this with a cloth. And now I'm going to apply some hot wax, which you've seen me use on rolling pins. It's really durable, so it's good. It's a good finish for a product like this. Then we just melt that wax in with the paper towel, and the lathe running at a high speed. It's a little over 2,000 RPM. So this piece is done now, except for sanding the little nub off the end, which I did off camera, and I just used my little mandrel with a 2-inch Velcro back pad on it in the headstock of the lathe. Now we're just removing the spur center, and we're going to put the walnut on, and it's mounted to a faceplate with a sacrificial block, and it's held on there by hot melt glue around the outside edges. I didn't show that stage as I've shown it in many videos before. Here I'm just cutting in a mortise with a parting tool so I can turn it around and put it in a 4-jaw chuck. And this chisel I've just repurposed and ground to match the dovetail angle in my 4-jaw chuck so that I get the right angle on the inside of my mortise to give me the best hole possible. And you can see that the mortise isn't very deep. It's a small piece and it's a pretty solid piece. And I have the lathe in reverse and I'm turning this on the opposite side just because it's much more comfortable to turn at this angle than it is in the normal way. So I have my mortise done, and now I'm going to drill the hole for the dowel in the upright, the holder itself. And I'm drilling it from the bottom to the top. And the reason I'm doing it that way is if I finish this all off and I flip it around and I drill from the top down through, there's a chance that I could either have a splinter out, or get some chip out here in the bottom, and then that won't look very good. But I haven't turned the top yet, so when I flip it around to turn the top, if there's any chip out in the top, I won't have any issue cleaning that up. The bottom and mortise are sanded now, so I'm just going to put some hot wax on and buff it in, and we'll flip it around. So this is held in the 4-jaw chuck, and really I don't need the tailstock up, but it's not going to be in my way for a while, so anytime you can get the extra support, it's never a bad idea to do that. So you see I have the lathe in reverse, so I'm going to cut from inside to outside. This face grain did not like being cut from the outside to the inside in the conventional manner. Now I know I could have turned the lathe in forward and cut from the center to the outside towards me. This is just a much more comfortable way of doing it. I'm making the base a simple design because I don't want to take too much mass away from it. I want to leave the smallest footprint possible on the base so it doesn't take up as much space on a dresser or a nightstand, but have enough mass there to keep the thing stable, and it is actually very stable. Here I'm putting just a very slight concave where the holder will sit on the top so that there's not a space there. So time for a test fit, and it's not quite big enough, so I'm going to make the hole just a tiny bit larger with this Easy Wood Tools number 1 hollower. So I did give it a little sanding, and this is a good fit here now. Don't want it too tight or too loose. So while I'm putting the finish on the base, I just want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel and everyone who watches the videos. I really appreciate it. If you like what you saw and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And hit the notification button so that you can see whenever I release another video. Alright, so here's our finished product. And so this is designed so that when you pull your scrunchies over the top of it, if you want one off the bottom, you just have to pop it out, which comes out nice and easily. Now this is a fairly tight fit so that it's not floppy, but it comes out easily. So if you want to take a scrunchie off the bottom, you can just pull one off the bottom, and rather than take them all off the top. And if, heaven forbid, if ever needed, it can be used for self-defense.